Hi, everyone. Welcome to Lifetime Value. My name is Rithik. I'm extremely excited for our guest today, our first mystery guest for season two, Pablo Amaya, a very good friend of mine from all the way back in Singapore, where we met each other in university. Pablo decided to follow his passion for aviation and is currently the senior leader in product revenue management at Aeromexico. He holds a master's in air transport management from Cranfield University. And today, Pablo is here to talk to us about the aviation industry, how he got into Aeromexico and how his career path has been, and also explain to us how the aviation industry is changing based on the impact of COVID. Lastly, Pablo is also pursuing a pilot's license, which has been a childhood dream of mine as well. And he will tell you guys how one can go about getting a pilot's license or what it is to be able to fly a plane. So without further ado, please welcome Pablo.
Hi, Ritik. Thank you for having me here. Thank you for the invitation. And hello, everyone.
Thank you so much for taking time out, Pablo. This is so exciting to finally have you. I've been wanting to chat about how the aviation industry has been changing since the big COVID struck. And I would love to have your thoughts on it. But first, why don't you introduce yourself to us and tell us how you eventually ended up in aviation?
Sure. Well, thank you again. And, it's been quite a challenging times right now that we're having here in the industry. So, how did everything started? I have to say, since I was a kid, I was always passionate about aviation and the industry. So, I started studying business administration. And then I
Mhm.
decided to go to Germany, and that's where I did my major in aviation management because I really
Mhm.
wanted to start focusing myself more on the business side of,
Mhm.
of the airline industry. And actually, later on, I ended up in Singapore, and
Mhm.
I really wanted also to get a feeling of how business was doing in Asia in
Mhm.
terms of not just the airline industry, but doing businesses in general in Asia. And I think it was really valuable to get that experience and that exposure in Singapore.
Mhm.
So once I came back from Singapore, I graduated, and as you were saying, I went to the UK to do my master's in air transport management. And since then, just before I finished my degree, I got some job offers. But I was not only looking at working for a leading carrier, but also at a position that really excited me. And that's how, in fact, I ended up at Aeromexico's corporate strategy division.
Mhm.
I got an offer to come back to Mexico, and I couldn't waste it. I was really excited to help my national carrier to develop and support and help in any way that I could, just being a graduate from the masters. So that's kind of like how it started just from the beginning.
Excellent. Now, one fun fact for our listeners, Pablo is actually the first one to introduce me to a paloma, essentially a Mexican drink here that mixes tequila with a soft drink called Squirt and some salt. That was the first time I ever had it in my life. And Pablo was the one who introduced me to that drink, which is so thank you a lot for that, Pablo. Now, the next question I had for you is maybe you can dive a bit deeper into what your day to day is like at Aeromexico and perhaps also explain to us what makes Aeromexico so different from the other airlines, for example.
Sure, and I'm glad I introduced you that drink. It's also something that I really enjoy, and I think we both can agree that it's quite a different taste from whatever you can find in Singapore. Um,
Absolutely.
so, well, my day to day, it's really summed upon a lot of emails, meetings, and coaching. So
Mm,
right now, what we do as a team is basically in the product management team is look at all the value that we can create for the airline, not just in terms of revenue, but also in terms of additional value, additional services that passengers may need.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give you a quick example. Once you purchase a ticket, that's basically part A of the traditional business model of the airlines. But right now, a couple of years ago, when in the US, the deregulation started and then low-cost carriers started entering the market, which are these carriers that offer you really competitive fares,
Mm-hmm.
we needed to find a differentiator for us in order to compete with these guys. And so we started introducing additional services, for instance, to give you a better experience on board. So say if you're flying from Mexico City to San Francisco,
Mm-hmm.
you not only get, the typical seat that you were supposed to fly, but you're exposed to getting, for instance, an upgrade or Sky Priority services or a car
Mm-hmm.
rental or, even a tour guide when once you get into San Francisco. So all those additional services, it's part of the business that we're doing, and that's with the help of the team. What we're looking at right now, not just how can we optimize fares in order to be more competitive, but also how can we create this additional services and how can we tailor them first, and secondly, price them correctly so that it makes sense for the customer to pay for it and it generates an additional value that in other carriers they might not find. And moving into the what makes Aeromexico different
Mm-hmm.
from other airlines, I'd really have to say, first of all, our business model in Mexico, it's completely unique and it's really different to what we see in the market. So we are the only full service carrier, not only that offers connections to Asia and Europe, but also that has this wide network to be able to connect you to almost anywhere in the globe
Mm-hmm.
with one of our partners or even with our own aircraft. So I have to say the business model, it's one of the things that really it's differentiating Aeromexico, and
Mm-hmm.
also the service. I mean, we do have to offer the right product to the right customer. So let me give you another example. If you fly domestic, let's say, I don't know, I know that you like Cancun, for instance, and we've even met there once.
Yeah.
So say you might have three, four options to go from Mexico City to Cancun,
Okay.
and probably let's imagine a passenger that it's low on budget and you only need to go there. You don't care where you're going to be seated. You're not checking any bag. You just want to go there because you saved a lot of money to stay there for, let's say, 1 week, and so you really don't care. Just the only thing that you care is that's the cheapest fare possible.
Yep.
And there we might also have the complete opposite, right? We might have a family, they want to enjoy the time, not just the vacation itself in Cancun, but since they leave their house, they want to feel relaxed, they want to feel good, they want to feel comfortable, they want to feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't really are too worried about paying a little extra, but just to
Yep.
get that full experience. So, and we can even put COVID right now here into play. So for these two passengers, us as Aeromexico, we are able to offer you the exact product that you need. We can
Mm-hmm.
offer you the cheapest fare, a really competitive fare to fly with us, to fly safe, to arrive to Cancun. Or we can also offer you the other spectrum to fly in Premier Cabin, which is our business class, so that you
Mm-hmm.
can relax, you can have a drink, you get your baggage. Once you deploy the aircraft, it's the one that it's going to come first, so you can just pick it up and run to the hotel and enjoy your vacation.
Mm-hmm.
And here with COVID, we've already seen a lot of people that might even shift from one spectrum to the other just by the fact that maybe they don't feel that safe going into the back of the plane fully loaded. So they'd rather have a bit more privacy, rather a bit more space.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we're going to talk about it in a couple of minutes, but just to give you that idea, if you would like to fly really comfortable, you couldn't do that with a competitor. You could only do basically the cheapest one type.
Yep.
And so what we're saying here is obviously there's always going to be competition.
Yep.
We're always fighting to get the same customer. But I really believe that the thing that it's making the difference, it's the service itself. Because at the end of the day, it's the same seat that we're offering from Mexico City to Cancun, you could put it that way. But
Hmm.
it's really that experience once you get into the airport, let's say even a different terminal. I mean, the experience to immerse yourself in
Hmm.
Terminal 1 or in Terminal 2, how does that come into play? Once
Hmm.
you're inside, you might have access to a lounge or you might not. You might have access to board first or you might not. The aircraft, how new the aircraft are, how comfortable the aircraft are, the
Hmm.
service, the food, the snacks. So it's a whole experience that we can pinpoint that really makes that difference, and that's what we are trying to offer to our customers to fly with us.
Absolutely. And as a satisfied customer, I can genuinely tell you it makes, even though on surface people are like, I have no problem slumming it out within a cheap seat and just get from A to B, the difference it makes is insane. And for our listeners who may not be from Mexico, Terminal 2 in the Mexican International Airport is home to Aeromexico. So if you're flying with Aeromexico, you kind of get like your own terminal, which makes such a big difference when you are traveling, and the amount of service that these guys provide you is so different. Now let's address the elephant in the room, COVID. Ever since the pandemic has struck, airline business has gone off a cliff. So yeah, would love to get your thoughts on what happened when the pandemic struck, and what was happening on the inside, and what the future is going to look like.
Sure, Ritik. So, just to give you a quick idea of where we're standing, in approximately 3 months, the industry went back 30 years in terms of traffic level.
Wow.
So that's just how big the hit has been in terms of how few people are flying right now.
Wow.
So it has been quite dramatically across the globe, not just in the case of Mexico, in the case of Singapore and in Europe, in the US. Literally, there's no nation that has been able to escape from this pandemic in terms of the effect that it has in our industry. And since our industry, it's about connecting people,
Hmm.
connecting nations, trade flows, it has been hugely devastated.
Hmm.
We've never faced such a challenge in our history,
Yeah.
period. And so that's just how kind of like where we're standing right now. Um, so I'd say there are a lot of things that'll change and that I foresee are going to happen. The first one, it's a timeline.
Okay.
So in order really for traffic to come back and rebounds, we are seeing and from the industry and the organisms and international bodies that regulate aviation, that it'll take around 4 to 5 years just to go back to traffic levels of 2019, so last
Wow.
year. So we're talking that until around 2024, 2025, traffic won't recover as we knew it.
Hmm.
So that's just to put you in a perspective of how challenging it is going to be, how challenging it is right now for airlines really to survive.
Hmm.
And to that end, I would talk to the fact of consolidation. Every
Hmm.
crisis, it's kind of like aviation history. Every crisis has brought aviation consolidation, so less players in the market, and that's something that it's already started. We've
Hmm.
seen it in Europe with some airlines disappearing, some airlines now being again nationalized. We've
Hmm.
seen it in South America with airlines, disappearing, being rebranded, and to be honest with you, I do believe we're also going to see it here in Mexico with at least one competitor disappearing, if not more.
Wow.
So many airlines are going to shrink, or they're going to consolidate in the near future.
Mm-hmm.
We've actually done that. So we went from having around 131 aircraft to roughly we're going to have around 80, 90 aircraft in the upcoming years. So we've actually already phased out some aircraft just by the fact that we don't need that aircraft right now. And that's something, that has happened in Europe, in the US. So you might remember, I mean, even in Singapore, the A380 from Singapore Airlines, the 12
Yeah.
A380s that Singapore Airlines had now are completely, in Australia in the desert, and they've actually put an A380 for dinner at Changi
Correct.
Airport. It's completely
Correct.
parked, that aircraft,
Yeah.
because you cannot fly that. It's too big for the little traffic that we have. We've seen historic aircraft, the 747 that many people know as the Queen of the Skies, the Jumbo, is basically gone. You probably, if you're lucky enough, you might even fly it again, but probably you will never fly that aircraft again.
Wow.
So British Airways, the largest jumbo operator in the world, just phased out all the remaining aircraft. That
Wow.
was something that was not going to happen into at least 3 or 4 years. So that's just looking at how little passengers are traveling right now, how literally traffic has stopped completely overnight. And to that end, I'd say one of the things that we are looking into, it's safety, right? And I think you alluded to that early in our conversation of how safe it is to fly or not to fly.
Yeah.
I was giving this example of flying until at the back of the plane or in the front of the plane. And just to give you some really concise figures from the International Transport Association, IATA, which is our the basically the regulator for all airlines industry. It's it's incredibly amazing how clean the air in airlines is in the aircraft. So just to give you a quick example, we have in our aircraft some filters, air filters called HEPA filters, which literally are as good, if not better quality than air filters on hospitals. Which filter 99.9% of all bacteria and viruses. And it's something that it's being renewed every 2 to 3 minutes. So just to put you in perspective, if you were sitting on an aircraft completely full, and you're sitting in a classroom as big as you want and as full as you want, you would have twice as much propensity to get COVID on a classroom than on a plane. If you would be on a supermarket, we all go to supermarkets from time to time. I've done it myself, although I order some groceries online. You're 8 times more exposed in the supermarket than in the plane. So that means the air in the plane is 8 times cleaner than in any mall or any supermarket. And if you just want to look at another example, say an office, right? Right now in Mexico, we're not allowed to work at to go back at the office, right? I mean, it's been really halted. It's 12 times cleaner, the air in the plane, than in the office. So in other words, you would be 12 times more exposed than in the plane. So safe is foremost and has been always safety the foremost principle and goal of aviation. And without any doubt, we're still the safest transportation method, even with COVID. And it's a safe environment regardless where you're sitting. There's no scientific evidence that shows if you are sitting right next to someone or if the seat right next to you it's empty, if you get a less propensity of getting infected. I mean, there's just no evidence at all, just by the fact that the air is so clean in the plane, practically impossible to get infected within the plane itself. So that's just something to give you a perspective on in terms of the safety and how we're dealing with it. And as an airline, we were actually the first in Mexico to launch safety and health management system, which is really looking at all corners when passengers arrive at the airport to make the experience cleaner, safer, and that passengers, get that confidence back that when they fly with Aeromexico, they're flying safe. They can fly with their families, they can fly with their friends, and just enjoy vacation, or enjoy giving that hug back to a relative that you haven't seen in a long time. And to that end, I think technology, it's something that has changed, and right now because of COVID, it'll start shaping the industry at a much quicker pace. There are going to be new tools and even more contactless technologies to really experience the traditional flight. So for instance, I foresee they might even be kind of like a COVID passport, some type of global identification that states that you have been verified, tested, and that you are safe to fly. That's something that I think it could come in the near future. New check-in options, artificial intelligence. There's a lot of things going, not just in the planes, but around the travel journey. So once you land at the airport, once you are within the plane, once you deplane, and even, once you get to the hotel, the traffic journey has changed forever. So it already changed. It'll never be back as we knew it. It'll be safer, it'll be cleaner, but the experience itself, what we had in the past foregone as a safe, well, now it's just it just got improved in that sense. So that's something good. Absolutely. And traffic, I got a lecturer that he always said this phrase, and I love it, because traffic always comes back, and it will come back. We are right now, for the last part of the year, revamping capacity to 85%. So that means we're flying at an 85% level versus our previous year. So that just gives you an idea of also how people are starting to be more confident, to feel safe about flying. And well, to be honest with you, there's just people that they just want to go out of their house, and meet family again, and see friends. I think it's really, really hard right now to forecast what's going to happen, just by the fact that, we have a lot of border closures developments, almost on a daily basis in some parts of the world. They open a border, they close it, they introduce new measures, they remove them. And it hasn't been standardized, right? And forgive your audience an example, in South America, the only two countries that have remained open, if we can put it that way, have been Brazil and Mexico. True. All the other countries in South America have had some type of quarantine, some type of travel restrictions. And we've seen that, I think that has positioned Aeromexico pretty well in terms of how to handle this crisis, because a lot of airlines in Colombia, in Argentina, they've literally just halted services, in Panama as well, because they're not able to fly. And so we have that kind of like advantage right now on how are we looking at things. People are starting to fly again, particularly to sun and snow destinations where they feel comfortable of vacationing. But, at the end of the day, if we decide to keep flying to a destination to increase capacity or reduce it, whatever we decide, right now it's literally being driven even more by the fact if we're covering costs or not. Airlines, we have thinner routes in terms of revenue generator, and others generate more revenue. And right now we're not in the luxury of keeping flying routes that are barely break even. And it's just by the fact what we're discussing, the costs that we have. We still have people that we need to pay. We still have shareholders that we need to deliver. We still have suppliers. We still have so many costs, the aircraft leases, navigation. It's really, really hard. And what is happening is that we're just burning cash every day. So previous quarter, we were burning around $2 million per day.
Wow.
Just to put you in perspective, some other carriers were even burning 10 times more than that per day in the United States. But they've been shrinking that from, say, the high 50s, 70s, 80s million to a level of 20 million, which is still pretty significant. But just to give you a quick flavor of really how devastating this has been to the industry.
Absolutely. Well, that was a great answer, Pablo. Now, before we move on to the next section, I wanted to ask you one last question. How has your own personal journey into flying been? How was it like to fly a plane? Where are you right now in your personal aviation career of flying? And if somebody wants to learn how to fly, how do they go about doing it?
That's something that really excites me, and happy to answer that. So I started flying in the UK when I was doing my master's. So I saved some money and put some hours there. The first flight was to Silverstone Formula One racetrack, which was astonishing, just to bank and fly really at a really low altitude there. And it's something that, regardless where you are, you'll never forget the time that you fly for the first time. Well, right now where I am is still pursuing to obtain the license. I'm in a flight school here in Mexico City. I've attended lessons on the weekend basis because of I don't have time during the week because of my job. And, just constantly keeping reading, keeping practicing on the weekends, just to, present some more tests and then just start building up more hours to get officially the license. Right now, I say that I have the license of God. It's like when I was 14 or 13 years old here in Mexico, you weren't allowed to drive, although I already knew how to drive. So if my mom would lend me her car, she would say, and we would joke that I had the God's license, because if they would pull me over, there would be no chance for my mom to rescue me. So that's kind of like the same in the air, although there aren't anyone that can really stop me in the air or pull me over in the air, I think. So I'd say, if you really want to fly, ask yourself if you want to be a professional pilot, then definitely look at attending a flight school. If you want to do it just more as a hobby, schools at some airports that don't offer a per se flight school experience, but it's more with an instructors. Because of COVID, my experience is waiting for the new Xbox and Flight Simulator, which I decided to buy, just wanting to get my hands on and keep on practicing.
Absolutely. Great response again, and I can feel it in your voice, the passion that you have. Now, before we wrap up, we do this additional segment called Payback Period, where the guest asks the host a question. What is your question for me today, Pablo?
So I have to say, and this is Payback Period. I have to say, your path, to be really honest with you, it's really shocking. It's really I'm really amazed by all the tracks that you've covered, and I'm really happy to call you my friend, and I'm really proud of what you've done. So my question would be in regards of what's kind of like what has been your really innermost motivation? Because I know it hasn't been easy for a guy that doesn't speak Spanish, that he's from around of the world, I mean, how have you dealt with that? Because I think that thing is something that it's really remarkable from you. And I've also wanted to ask you so that's the first question. And your second question would be on what's next for you? What's the next ladder for Hrithik?
Both very, very good questions. To answer the first question, I kind of feel like a part of me has always just been, perhaps this is just me. I love proving people wrong. I don't know why. Like a lot of my sort of motivation, and it's not the best, but I kind of feel that a lot of times whenever people have said that I can't do something or it's out of my means, I will work till kingdom come to make sure that I prove them wrong. I don't know why, but like that has really lit a fire in me. I kind of feel that is perhaps the first step. I've also been really blessed to be surrounded by such an amazing support system. Speaking about my partner Fernanda, my family, her family, the people I met early on in Mexico, yourself included. They've always sort of cheered me on, always kind of kept me feeling very positive, even when things were not going right, initially or in the middle or whenever. There's always been somebody I can count on. So I kind of feel it's a combination of these two things that have really helped me. And, I kind of feel that it has given me an additional motivation to either pay it back or to keep going forward, so I can really prove the people who back me for that the investment that they made with their time, with their effort, really is worth it. Those are the sort of things that really kind of keep me going. In terms of the next steps, I just started this new, which is working at Nium, which is a Singaporean company, and I'm the first Latin American employee. It's sort of come ironically full circle where, usually I'll be the first Singaporean employee or for a Mexican firm, but now I'm the first Mexican employee for a Singaporean company. So it kind of gives me a sense of pride. Like, I've managed to grasp enough of this geography or the context of fintech here to be able to provide other companies who might be looking into breaking into this industry and this geography advice, or just being able to put them in touch with the right people. And that is something that I want to commit myself to. Intrinsically, I'm motivated to bring Singapore and Mexico together because, like you said, there's like maybe 3 or 5 Singaporeans here, and I hope there's more of us in the future, because Mexico is such a lovely place and Singapore is such a lovely place. Just because we're separated by a massive body of ocean doesn't mean we can't get closer to each other. So that is something I want to commit myself to bringing intrinsically these two countries together. And I kind of feel the first step I've taken with Nium is a step in the right direction. Great questions.
It's really, it's remarkable, Riddick. I think it's, that part of always trying to prove them wrong. I think it's a remarkable attitude, and I really respect it, and I admire that from you. And I know it's been challenging, but it's really fascinating to see that path that you followed, and right now in your new role, and how you are, as you were saying, the first Latin American in a Singaporean company, and how you want to keep kind of like binding together Singapore with Mexico, which I also find fascinating, and I'm sure you will too. I foresee a Singaporean community led by Riddick. It's really fascinating. I think you're doing a great job, and it's I'm really proud to call you my friend. Really, really happy for that, and to hear that answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And, before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask if you wanted to share one last piece of advice for anybody thinking of joining the aviation industry.
So yeah. I'm going to go a little outside of the track. I'm not just going to do it for aviation, but I'm just going to do it by, I'm one of those guys that, as you were saying, I literally pursued my dream. And I believe I've heard that in the past from friends and relatives, that not all the people are able to pursue their dream. And I think that might come at a time as, being a bit frustrating on how some people have really defined what they want to do, and they're doing that as a job, which is, some could argue it's a job and some could argue it's not. But I'd say, regardless if it's aviation or if it's not, I'd encourage everyone just to be patient and hear themselves out. Talk to as many people as you can. I've always enjoyed, talking to older people. You get so much knowledge. They have so many years in history, that things they've lived and heard and experienced that we haven't done that. And that I believe, everyone can find whatever they are meant to be. And as a cliche as it might sound, I think that's something really valuable, just to be a bit have a bit patience on trying to find that way. And if you're pursuing a career in aviation, well, anything that, if you want any advice or anything, I would encourage any one of you to just reach out to me through LinkedIn. But definitely, try to get as much exposure as you can in terms of what's happening in the industry. Right now, thanks to the internet, there are so many sources, free sources, where you can get airline news, where you can have, apps that download every day, what's going on in the industry. And I think that's a really good, a good stepping stone for people, to differentiate yourself from someone that wants to get in the industry just by the fact maybe that you want to travel for free, or by the fact that you really are pursuing it because you're really passionate about it. And I believe that if you can show your passion and combine it with the knowledge, which is literally out there. I mean, there's tons and tons of websites that you can subscribe, that you can look at, in Twitter, news. There's just a bunch of let's call it a marketplace where you can start pulling information to kind of like build that aviation acumen, if you want to put it that way. I think that's for aviation and for any other industry. I think that's really valuable, so that when the employer looks at you, he sees that passion and that added value, whereas in another candidate might not happen. So that would be my final recommendation for the audience today.
Perfect. Well, Pablo, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you. And I really hope to have you again on the podcast when, you're the CEO of Aeromexico and leading them towards the next innovation in aviation. If anybody would like to reach out to Pablo, I'll include his LinkedIn in the post. And well, thank you so much again, Pablo.
No, thank you, Ritik. Thank you very much for the honor. Really humbled by the invitation, and anytime, really happy to be here, and looking forward to the next one.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And this was Lifetime Value.